Welcome to the University of Washington Taiwan Studies Program special Q&A interview on the Primary Sources on Taiwan project. I'm honored today to have with us the founders of the project, Wayne Soon and Evan Dawley. Professor Evan Dawley is Associate Professor of History at Goucher College and author of Becoming Taiwanese, Ethnogenesis in a Colonial City, 1880s to 1950s. And Professor Wayne Soon is Assistant Professor of History at Vassar College and author of Global Medicine in China, a Diasporic History. So welcome, Wayne and Evan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, James, for inviting us to do this.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions about your project, and I'll start first with the basics. Tell me about your project, how it came to be, and who it's for.
Although it really is due to Wayne that this project came into existence. I was digging back through some messages to find out exactly when, and it seems that in April of 2020, so early in the pandemic period, he messaged me and saying, "Do you want to create a website with primary sources about Taiwan in translation?" And I said yes, and had a couple of ideas for, maybe we should go bigger than a website and try to do get grants and produce a volume of primary sources. And then things just sort of developed from there. Into first we did a sort of a proof of concept panel at AAS this past year, where we had a number of people talk about primary sources they had translated, and it has now developed into a website. I don't know, Wayne, if you want to add to the origin story there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Evan has been so helpful in launching the website, and my RA John Mahoney was really instrumental in trying to get all the technical information up and the support of Vassar College. And I think that's really instrumental for us. And I think we really wanted this project to provide kind of a context of these translation of non-fictional sources.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that we can make English language primary sources on Taiwan history more accessible to instructors. And I think what really motivated the project is that we found that many people are really interested in Taiwan's history or teaching Taiwan history in a classroom, but there's a real lack of primary sources on Taiwan. There's some here and there in specific primary source collections on modern Chinese history, but they're in fact, quite few, fewer than 5 or 6 in any collection. So we hope that through this project, we can allow for more people to be able to use these translated primary sources for a wide variety of classes. And as Evan points out, when we did the AAS panel, there were, not only historians, there were literary scholars, there was a political scientist, and there still continues to be these many collaborators, right? More than 7 that have been working on various translations, and we hope, that this project will continue to grow. So,
yeah,
wonderful. Thank you for that background. And can you tell us maybe whom you're targeting with your project? Who do you think will be using it?
Sure. Our initial thought for an audience was definitely college and university professors working in English language settings, or at least working with English language capabilities, for whom there were, as Wayne said, very few primary sources available. Historians in particular, but other disciplines as well. We like to use a lot of primary materials to help our students get into the history or get into the events that we're addressing. And so we wanted those instructors to have materials available. As Wayne said, there are some government sources that are out there, particularly treaties. There's some really good literature in translation already, but there's not much that gets really down to sort of day-to-day levels. There's a lot of political movements that haven't been addressed, and a lot of aspects of the Japanese era and the early post-war period, the early retrocession era after 1945, that have not gotten really addressed in materials that are already out there. And so we wanted to give college and university professors the tools to help their students get a better appreciation for Taiwan and its history.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Evan is right. And I think primary sources are a great way to kind of think about some of the themes of Taiwanese history. As Evan has pointed out, issues of political movements, but also ideas of public health, which is really critical, especially in times of pandemics, as we are in today, and also issues of social movements, the role of doctors in society, and Taiwan's international positioning, beyond treaties, and really kind of show the process of Taiwan coming into being, right? The ideas of Taiwan associated with Taiwan, and to show that this is kind of a contingent process, a process that's debated and that was thought of very carefully by historical actors in Taiwan over space and time. So nothing was, given. If we just read simply a textbook on Taiwan's history, it's really kind of moving, marching upon in time. But I think the historical actors, they move back in time and also forward in time as they think about issues they were trying to grapple with, especially issues that really pertain to Taiwan and the world. So we're really hoping, to reach out to university instructors and professors, but we also hope that perhaps, high school teachers, right, who really want something on Taiwan, who are really looking at something that's happening in the news about Taiwan, but also wanting to find something that's applicable to our students. And I think Evan will agree with me that these primary sources are short enough for students really, I think at a high school and above level, right, that they can access these resources without feeling overwhelmed by large amount of documents. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I was wondering if you could show us an example of a document from your project, maybe some ideas for how to use that document in teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't I begin answering that question by actually showing you the website that exists now, and give a little tour of that, and then maybe I think Wayne is going to take us into one of the materials in particular. So this is the website as it currently exists, Primary Sources on Taiwan. We've got an opening discussion of why we were doing this project that gets into some of the things we've already said in that regard. But I want to take you through sort of the outline or the map of the website, if you will. So we've got sources arranged by subject: public health, international relations, domestic politics, colonialism, and education are the main areas. And as you may notice as you scroll through this, or as I scroll through this, some of the same materials apply to different categories, to different subjects. So people looking for materials can find sources that way. They can look chronologically at the Japanese colonial period, KMT rule and martial law, and then the process of democratization in Taiwan. And those are the materials that we have, right? We've got, I think at this point, about 8 translations that are up on the site. And I will now turn things over to Wayne and let him sort of show you one of the examples that we've got there.
Well, thank you, Evan. Exactly, as Evan points out, I'm going to share my screen right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. So again, this is the website. Okay. And as Evan points out, we have divided and organized these documents by subject and chronology, right? So to give variety and options for people who want to think about Taiwan's history in different ways. So, for example, if you want to kind of look at a class on history of medicine, right, public health will be really helpful, right? If you're looking at sort of Taiwan and the world, and kind of issues of political science and IR, international relations as a category, and domestic politics, right? Really kind of bring some of the questions of Taiwan's democratization and authoritarianism to life, right? Some of the debates and ideas and questions here, but also kind of a broader class on colonialism, right? Not only in terms of colonialism in East Asia, but kind of comparative colonialism would be really helpful. We have a wide variety of documents ranging from textbooks, looking at issues of public health during the colonial period, also looking at the ways in which the the government has shaped education in the media, and so on and so forth, right? So I think our class really can, pertain to a wide variety of materials, right? And I think the sources by chronology really works great. Now of course our documents right now are really looking at the Japanese colonial period and post-Japanese colonial period. So it's really helpful for a class, for example, on the history of modern East Asia, history of modern China, modern Japan, and really to incorporate these materials, right, and to really see Taiwan as an integral part of East Asian history, right, not simply an appendage. So I think these documents also really link, the histories of China and Japan and other parts of the world to what we think is really very important for Taiwan. And an example that I use, for my class, which is not usually used in many classes, but I teach a class on history of medicine in East Asia. It's called the Medicine, Health, and Disease in East Asia. And one of the documents that I use is called the Social Role of Taiwanese Doctors and Clinical Notes. And this document is translated by Dr. Harry Wu, right? And it's a fantastic document. Dr. Harry Wu is an associate professor at National Cheng Kung University in Taiwan. So he translated two documents. One by Jiang Weishui, who is a Taiwanese intellectual during the Japanese colonial period. He was also the founder of the Taiwan People's Party and Taiwan's Cultural Association, kind of a social elite during the Japanese colonial period. And the second document he translated is the kind of clinical notes too, right, which is by this activist during the martial law period. His name is called Chen Yongxing, and Chen Yongxing was a very important member of the Dangwai movement, which was really representative of the people who wanted an alternative to the ruling Kuomintang, the Chinese Nationalist Party government, during the 60s and 70s and 80s. And so, when I use this document in the history of East Asian medicine class, it's really great because students can see how Taiwanese intellectuals and Taiwanese doctors use medical analogies to critique the politics and society of the day, right? To kind of relate the wider questions of medicine and politics, right? And to show how medicine was central really to criticisms and to improvements of societies and intellectual musings during this particular period. So this document really kind of talks about, Jiang Weishui in Clinical Notes really talks about, for example, the history of Taiwan from the Qing Dynasty to the Japanese period, and really looking at, for example, making an analogy or allegory of Taiwan to kind of a patient, right, who is really sick, and kind of in a clinical notes fashion, talk about the diagnostic, the treatment, the cause of disease, the prognosis. But I think what is really important, and what my students are really interested in, is looking at the prescription, right? How Jiang Weishui used the word normal school education, maximum dose, supplementary education, maximum dose, and so on, right? And I think to really show that these intellectuals were interested in the mind, right? The mind is something that was critical to help to improve the conditions of the sick Taiwanese patients. And it is not surprising that when Chen Yongxing made similar references to the problems that Taiwan faced under the martial law period, he also used a similar kind of analogy, but of course updated it with kind of the most sort of newest forms of psychotherapy and so on. But I think in sum, this document really shows not only shows the importance of Taiwan in thinking about medicine in East Asia, but also shows the very, very importance of the ways in which history of medicine intersects with broader political and social history. So, and I think this is many of these documents are of similar nature, and I think there's such a great resource for us to use in our classrooms. So, thanks.
Thank you, Wayne and Evan. Wow, what a document, Wayne. I did not know this existed, and the exactly as you say, I guess the politicized or the medicinization of politics and vice versa in Chen Yongxing's notes is really remarkable. I'll have to use that in my teaching in the future. So my next question is, how might these documents help those who are not educators? For example, people who are just interested in learning about Taiwanese history and don't necessarily teach in the classroom?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's one I've been trying to give a little thought to. I think that the way that we've asked the contributors to contextualize their documents and to provide some questions that people can think about as they read the documents, I think that will make them accessible to people who are just interested in learning about Taiwan, or just interested in knowing a little bit more about Taiwan's past, including its recent past. Excuse me, right? A couple of the documents that we have are from right, legislative UN negotiations around the public health system, or around the national health system. Sorry, and so people who are interested in that really important institution for Taiwan could learn a little bit more about its origins just by reading the translation and reading the questions to help them think a little bit more about what the words that people used in those negotiations meant at the time. Or there's a great document in there from Mei Li Dao from the Formosa magazine, right, about the origins really of democratization movement. And so people who are interested in that can go back and see some of that and learn a little bit about, well, how did it really get going? So I really think that anyone with an interest in Taiwan, I could imagine actually journalists referencing some of these materials if they're interested again in the origins of some of these important institutions or events.
Yeah, I mean, I think Evan said what I wanted to say, but I I agree. No, I totally agree with you. So, and I appreciate you saying that. So, I think another thing to think about, I think these documents are really a great way to open up conversations within, for example, among family and friends, right? Especially among the diaspora who operate primarily in the English language, and I feel that I think this is a way for people to really talk about Taiwan in a way that's critical, right? To kind of have a sense of the past, not as predetermined, but something that's negotiated and analyzed, right? And I think that really is what I think professional historians really want to bring, right? The kind of contested, complicated past, and but the complex and complexity, the contested and complexity of the past is not so much in the words in which historians write, but I think it also is in the documents in which these things emerge from, right? And I think that people who read these documents, really can have a sense of the same kind of tensions they themselves perhaps feel about Taiwan. As for example, Taiwan's relationship with the U.S., with China, with the world, and in their own families and so on, right? So I think, that's what I really love about the possibility of these documents, that because as Evan points out, these documents are open access, right? So anyone can actually use them, right? I think that's the best part, at least of the proof of concept at this moment. So I'm really excited and hope more people will use it. So
wonderful. Okay, my final question for you. The project is very new and you've already done so much, but I wanted to ask what your plans are for the future. How will the project grow? And also, if there are viewers who are interested in contributing to the project, can they do so? And if so, what are you looking for?
Well, the short answer is I think I hope Wayne will agree that yes, people can definitely contribute. We're still very much in a gathering phase. We're definitely hoping to see it expand considerably beyond the 8 documents or so that we have. There are a couple more that people I know are working on right now, and we'll get onto the site relatively soon. But we're definitely interested. And what we're interested in is people drawing upon materials that they're already using for their own research. Not necessarily going out and finding new topics or finding new things to translate, but people who are already translating things, are already using materials that they think could be useful in a classroom setting, then they should definitely contact either Wayne or myself or both of us with suggestions for what they have, and we would definitely welcome additional contributions. I will add that at some point, hopefully in the coming year, we are actually going to sit down a little bit and reflect upon what we have, the format that these translations already exist in, and also what is missing. And we might start to sort of put out calls for particular types of materials. But at this point, we're really looking for whatever researchers are interested in and willing to contribute.
I think what we are really, and just really to add to what Evan is saying, I think we're really excited that so many people of so many disciplines have contributed to the project, and I think a lot of people who are contributing to the project are not necessarily historians of Taiwan per se.
Right.
They are scholars of all kinds of disciplines, but feel very strongly about this project. They feel that this project will contribute greatly to the understanding of Taiwan's history and the teaching of Taiwan's history. So we're really looking for that kind of interest. And I think, as Evan points out, we're looking really kind of gathering materials at this point, and we're also kind of interested in thinking about, for example, gaps, in what we have in the materials. For example, especially in the Qing period, which we currently do not have documents. So, scholars working on Qing Taiwan, or anything relating between, I think would be really helpful and interesting, and they can definitely look at the themes that we have covered so far. But we really are welcoming any kind of new themes. I think that might be of interest to the a broad audience. So thanks.
Yeah, if I can just add just two quick more things. One, I read another gap perhaps is we don't have really anything on indigenous Taiwanese.
Exactly.
That would be that's really a big hole right now, and we'd love to see that filled. The last thing I was going to say is that we hope to continue to keep it as an open access set of materials. Whether it's a website that continues to grow and grow and grow, whether there is eventually a hard copy publication, we really do want it to be open source so that everybody can access these materials without having to shell out big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with Evan. If anyone has any comments or questions or any suggestions for us, we definitely welcome them. So please let us know.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, any other last minute comments that you wanted to add? Anything we didn't touch upon?
I'll just say once again, extend my thanks for taking the time to sit down and talk with us, James, and to help us get the word out about this.
Yeah, thank you, James, and really appreciate UW for being so supportive of the project. And I think, we really hope that this will grow and will continue to attract more people in the audience. So thank you.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you all for joining us. Thank you once again to Evan and Wayne for telling us about your great project, and I look forward to seeing it grow.
Thank you.
Thank you.